I didn't arrive with a thought in mind. I came the way a sound does, already forming before it's heard. The room wasn't waiting, it was simply there, like it never learned how to expect. I stand where the air slows down, not heavy, not empty, just enough to notice. Nothing asks for my attention, nothing tries to stay. That's how I know it's honest. I keep my breath low where it doesn't disturb. Some things disappear when you look at them too hard. There's a kind of balance in not choosing and letting the moment finish itself. The walls carry a temperature, not warm, not cold, just familiar. I don't reach for memory, it comes when it's ready, like a tone finding its place. Time doesn't move forward here, it widens quietly without permission. I stay inside that widening, not feeling it, not leaving, just standing. Something opens, not high, yeah, just deeper, and it stays. I don't follow the feeling, I let it pass through without asking what it wants. There's no ending in this, only a settling, like sound after the note. I leave nothing behind because nothing was taken, it all remains without needing. It didn't arrive with a plan, it came the quiet way, like something already living between us. You smiled before the moment settled, as if you felt it too. Some things recognize themselves before they speak. The street felt closer that night, not smaller, just attentive, like it was aware. I noticed how you slowed down when it started to feel real. Not cautious, just present. We talked around nothing and somehow reached everything. That's when I knew it mattered. Your hand rested without asking, like it remembered where it belonged. become something I could sense tomorrow, not clearly, but gently, like a place within reach. You said my name, a simple way that lets us stay a little longer. Something settled in my chest, not excitement, just certainty. Finding this way, we didn't hold it, we let it be. That's why I stayed. If it turns into memory, it will be kind. If it becomes a future, it already knows how. Almost stars, and somehow there was enough. It didn't have to be remembered, that's why it stayed. Some moments survive by not insisting. We were standing in the middle of nothing, not lost, just unclaimed. Like it belonged to no one yet. You spoke slowly, as if the words had weight. Not heavy, just careful. I noticed how the air changed when you stopped trying. The room felt steadier after that. We were reaching for meaning. We let it ride, the quiet kind that knows where to sit. Your silence didn't interrupt me, it understood that not everything needs a response. Time didn't move forward, it spread wide enough for us to stay inside. There was trust in how we paused, not afraid of losing the moment, certain it wouldn't disappear if left alone. I felt something settle, not excitement, not relief, something deeper. You looked at me like nothing needed proving, like the moment was already enough. It rose without sound, without effort, just presence taking its place. We didn't name it, we didn't promise it, that's why it stayed untouched. If it becomes a memory, it will be steady. If it becomes more, it already knows how. Some things don't leave, they remain. exactly where they were allowed to be. It didn't arrive loudly. That should have warned me. The quiet things always stay longer. We were sharing the same silence from different sides of a room, not avoiding, just allowing. You look like you had already decided not to rush, as if time had agreed with you. I noticed how my thoughts slowed around you, like they didn't need to impress anyone. We spoke about ordinary things, but the space between them was doing all the work. Your presence didn't lean in, it waited, confident that it would be noticed. There was something disarming in how you didn't ask for more than what was there. I felt my guard soften without falling, without fear, just release. We stayed longer than planned, not because we wanted more, but because nothing pushed us out. You didn't promise to return, and somehow that made you feel closer. I realized then some connections don't grow, they reveal themselves when you stop moving. It rose quietly inside me, not excitement, not longing, recognition, the kind that doesn't shake you but steadies you, like something clicking into place. We didn't call it anything, so it wouldn't be reduced to language or expectation. If it leaves, it will do so gently. If it stays, it already knows how. Some things don't need to arrive to be real. They remain because they were never forced. We met where the sound was thinning, at the edge of a long day. Nothing dramatic, just space finally opening. You said my name like a thought. You weren't finished having it stay between us, unclaimed. The room carried its own memory before we had it ours. Chairs slightly turned, as if expecting company. We talked about roads we avoided, not the reasons, just the distance they left behind. Your silence didn't feel empty, it felt trained, like it knew when not to interrupt. I noticed how you listen with your shoulders, not your eyes, as if attention had learned a new shape. Time didn't slow, it widened enough for both of us to stand inside. Your laugh once soft and surprised, like it escaped before being approved. There was a choice we didn't name, hanging quietly, not fear, just awareness. You moved closer without deciding, I stayed still without resisting. The moment arranged itself without instruction.
Something in me released its grip,
Not on you,
on the need to define.
I understood then. Some connections weaken the moment you try to keep them. It rose like recognition, not desire, not hope, knowing the kind that steadies your breathing and asks nothing back, the kind that feels finished while it's happening. We didn't take what was offered, we let it remain complete where it stood. If it becomes memory, it will stay intact. If it becomes absence, it won't feel unfinished. Some stories don't ask to be continued, they ask to be respected and left as they were. It started small, so small it hid well. A word left unfinished between us. We kept moving around it like furniture you forget is broken until you sit down. You smiled when it came close, I did too. That's how we learned to survive it. We talked about everything else, weather, plans, other people's mistakes, but never that moment where your voice changed just enough for me to notice. I told myself it didn't matter, that it would soften if left alone, like most things. You began choosing silence more carefully, as if sound itself could cause damage. I felt the shift in my body first, shoulders tightening, breath shortening, instinct waking up. We became experts at keeping the peace, not realizing peace was costing us. You said it's not a problem, and I agree. That was the first time we lied together. phrases I never spoke, they grew heavier the longer they stayed. You started listening without hearing, nodding like agreement could replace attention. Then it rose all at once, not loud but undeniable. I felt it in my chest, sharp, clear, impossible to fold away. I realized the damage wasn't the silence, it was the effort it took to maintain it. You looked at me then, really looked as if you finally saw what we had avoided. And for a second everything trembled, not because it was ending, but because it was exposed. We didn't fix it, we didn't fight, we stood there breathing through a truth. After that nothing was simple, but nothing was false either. Some problems don't need solutions, they need witnesses, someone willing to stay present. That was the moment I stopped pretending. It was small and started respecting its weight. It started as something light, so light we didn't hold it. Just a look that stayed a second longer. We learned each other in fragments, not the full story. Only the parts that felt safe to offer. You spoke carefully, as if balance mattered, like one word could tip something over. I noticed how you paused before saying my name, not unsure, just aware. We built a rhythm around distance, close enough to feel far enough not to risk it. I carried questions quietly, not to protect you, but to protect what we had. You smiled through certain moments, I did too. That's how we kept the surface calm. I thought silence meant patience, you thought it meant control. Neither of us said what it really was. There was a heaviness growing between ordinary days, not dramatic, just present. I realized then some weight doesn't come from pain, it comes from holding back what's already true. It rose suddenly in my chest, clear, unavoidable. Not anger, not fear, but the sharp relief of recognition. I felt the cost of our balance all at once, how much strength it took to keep it. You looked at me and I knew you felt it too. The thing we never shared finally visible after that. Nothing collapsed, but nothing stayed the same. each other in quiet ways, half sentences, eyes finishing what mouths avoided. There was a comfort in not asking, a safety in delay. Like if we didn't touch it, it wouldn't change. I told myself patience was strength, that waiting meant care. You nodded, and we called it balance. Days passed cleanly, too clean. Nothing broke, nothing moved. I noticed how your laughter shortened, how my questions stayed inside. We were editing ourselves without agreement. We shared rooms but not weight, shared time but not risk. I felt it building in my chest, not pain, pressure, held breath. You felt it too, I saw it in your hands. Always busy, never resting, pre-lift tension. There was one sentence circling us for days, maybe weeks. We both knew it, we both avoided it, like saying it aloud will make it permanent. Then it finally spoke, not loud, but full. I let it rise through my chest, unfiltered, unsoftened, clear. My voice didn't shake, it opened wide enough to carry truth. I said the thing we've been surviving around, and the room changed instantly. You didn't interrupt, you didn't defend, you stayed and listened. The air felt sharper but lighter, like something heavy had been set down. Release. After that, nothing was easy, but everything was real. We didn't fix it, we didn't lose it, we finally met it. Some moments don't need a resolution, they need courage to be heard all the way through. I didn't plan to say anything, I never do, I never do. I usually let silence finish the job. The room felt ordinary, same light, same chair, same distance. You had something simple, not the kind that matters. That's usually how it starts. I answered carefully, as if tone could protect me, as if choosing words could keep things calm. I heard myself explaining details you didn't need. I was already moving too far. You stayed still, listened without stopping me. That should've warned me, but it didn't. I noticed my hands talking before I did. Small movements, giving things away. I told myself to slow down, to land the sentence and leave it there like always. But something shifted, not in you, in me. A decision without permission, pressure building. I kept talking past the safe point, past the version of myself that edits. I kept talking and my voice didn't rise, it opened. I said the part I usually remove, the reason behind the reason, the weight behind the calm. I spoke in full sentences, no exits, no softening, no apology. I felt it in my chest, wide, steady, unavoidable. I didn't sound angry, I sounded clear, like someone finally standing where they are. The room held it, every word long enough to matter. When I stopped, nothing collapsed, nothing rushed to fix it. You look different, not shocked, not distant, just present. I realized then, some moments don't change because they're loud, they change because they're complete. That was the first time I didn't take anything back, and it stayed exactly because of that. We didn't mark the date, they marked us quietly, without asking. Mornings learned our name, nights forgot them, somewhere in between. We adjusted. I stopped checking the route for signs, it was already holding everything. You moved differently then, less careful, like balance had been learned. Spoke in shorter line, not because there was less to say, but because we trusted the space. I noticed how my breathing changed when nothing needed explaining. That was new and it stayed. We let routine soften, edges round out the way time does when it's allowed. There were moments of doubt, they passed, not pushed away, just seen. I realized strength wasn't effort, it was continuity showing up without armor. Something began to lift, not urgency, but clarity finding rhythm. I felt it open in my chest, slow, wide, unforced, not a rush, not a plea, just a steady recognition. Weakened shape, my voice didn't reach, just settled, carrying weight without strain. I understood then, what we built wasn't fragile, it was precise release. After that, nothing needed proof, the days continued, and so did we. If something fades, it does so honestly. If something remains, it earns a right. This is what stayed after the waiting, the talking, the quiet learning. Not a moment, but a way of being that knows how to last. I saw your name appear, not as a shock, more like a test. I already knew the answer to. The room stayed honest, nothing leaned toward me, only the moments, what I would do. I learned how a reflex can wear the mask of care, how answering fast can feel like love. I let the pause arrive and finish the thought. It said enough without saying much. There was no fight in me, no speech prepared, just a steady weight settling where truth lives. I stood exactly where I was and didn't negotiate with memory or habit. I remember the times I bent, calling it understanding, the times I stayed quiet, calling it peace. Your absence tried to pull me the way it always had, but something in me had learned its shape. My chest opened slowly, not upward but wider, as if space itself trusted me. I kept speaking softly, clearly, each word staying longer than fear. I didn't raise my voice, I let it deepen, the kind of sound that doesn't chase, it holds. Nothing spilled, nothing broke, but everything landed. When the moment passed, it didn't take anything with it. No echo, no loss, just a quiet certainty, still standing where I left it and where I stayed. I saw your name appear, not as a shock, more like a test. I already knew the answer to the room stayed honest. Nothing leaned toward me, only the moment asked what I would do. I learned how reflex can wear the mask of care, how answering fast can feel like love. I let the pause arrive and finish the thought. It said enough without saying much. There was no fight in me, no speech prepared, just a steady weight settling where truth lives. I stood exactly where I was and didn't negotiate with memory or habit. I remember the times I bent, calling it understanding, the times I stayed quiet, calling it peace. Your absence tried to pull me the way it always had, but something in me had learned its shape. My chest opened slowly, not upward but wider, as if space itself trusted me. I kept speaking softly, clearly, each word staying longer than fear. Ooh, I didn't raise my voice, I let it deepen, the kind of sound that doesn't chase, it holds. Nothing spilled, nothing broke, but everything landed. When the moment passed, it didn't take anything with it. No echo, no loss, just a quiet certainty, still standing where I left it and where I stayed. I didn't notice the ending, because nothing collapsed. The days kept their shape, and I followed. You were still there, in the usual way. Your voice unchanged, your questions familiar. I kept answering on time, kept showing up, as if repetition could turn back meaning. I chose not to name, not denial, just delay. I mistook calm for connection, a habit for closeness. Then one ordinary moment, no drama, no distance, shifted the weight. I realized I wasn't holding up, I was maintaining in a structure already empty. The clarity came quietly, no rush, no relief, just precision. My chest didn't tighten, it aligned like something inside me finally made sense. I understood without explaining, without asking, without needing proof. The truth didn't shout, it stood firm, complete. I felt the strength from not reaching, not correcting, not repairing. It was over, not suddenly, but thoroughly, and I could see it. After that, I didn't change my life, I changed how I stood in it. What ended stayed ended, and I carried on without resistance. Some realizations don't hurt, they settle and teach you when not to return. I never lost you in the way people lose. There was no goodbye, no shattered room, just a quiet distance, learning how to stay. Like a name I never called, but somehow knew. We moved around the edges of the same days, close enough to feel too far to claim. Every word behaved, every touch delayed. We were careful like it meant something sacred. I kept a space for you I couldn't explain, a chair that stayed empty without complaint. No fight, no fall, no dramatic end, just a story that never learned how to begin. And I told myself this was safer somehow. Nothing broken if nothing is loud, but silence leaves marks you don't see it first. It settles slow like dust in the worst places. Then one night it hit me without sound. Not a scream, not a breakdown, just a sudden weight in my chest, realizing what hurts is what never happened. I didn't miss your voice, I missed the chance, the version of me that leaned in instead of danced around it. I mourned a life we never tested, a future that stayed polite and distant. That's when my breath changed, that's when my hand shook. Not from losing you, but from losing the courage I once had. I wanted to run toward it, say something too honest, too late. But time doesn't reopen doors, it only shows you which ones you avoided. So here I stand with nothing to forgive, no one to blame, no reason to be angry. Just the shape of something that could have been, still sitting quietly inside me. The light stayed on longer than it should have. I didn't turn it off. I wanted the room to remember you, even if you wouldn't. Your jacket's still where you dropped it, like you meant to come back. The smell hasn't learned the truth yet. It still thinks you're here. I sat on the edge of the bed, not thinking, just breathing, trying not to move anything in case it broke the spell. There's a sound the house makes at night when it realizes it's alone. Not loud, not quiet, just honest. I told myself this was temporary, that time would clean the floor. But time doesn't clean, it rearranges, and then it hits me. Not like pain, like clarity. You're not late, you're gone. I don't say it out loud, but my body already knows. My hands stop waiting, my chest lets go. Everything we didn't finish settles into dust, not heavy, just permanent. I don't reach for you anymore, I reach for the truth, and it's colder than I thought, but it stays. The room doesn't echo now, it listens. So do I. Finally understands what stayed was never you, it was me, still on the floor. I woke up lighter, without knowing why. Nothing was missing, nothing was fixed. The room stayed the same. Your name crossed my mind like weather, present, but no longer directing the day. I didn't erase you, I didn't forgive you. I just stopped holding the space where effort used to sit. We learned each other's limits, not by crossing them, but by standing still too long. And I used to call it patience, what it really was, a slow agreement to disappear. Then something shifted quietly, not relief, just accuracy. I noticed my hands were no longer tight, my shoulders stopped remembering a weight they carried out of habit. I wasn't strong, I was done. There's a difference I finally understood. I didn't walk away, I stayed, but the ground under me changed its rules. You didn't leave, you remained exactly where you were, and I moved past the need. That's when my voice rose, not in anger, but in truth, clear and steady. I don't know silence anymore, I don't know balance, I don't know the version of me that stayed heavy to keep things alive. What fell was never you, it was the weight I didn't need to carry. Now when I breathe it reaches further, nothing dramatic, just honest. Some endings don't close doors, they remove burdens and teach the body how freedom actually feels. I learned how to smile without meaning it. I learned how to nod when I broke inside. Every room taught me how to disappear. Every silence told me to be polite. I carried calm like it was armor, I carried patience like it was law. They called it strength, I called it breathing slow, so no one would hear the crack. I stayed soft when I wanted to scream, I stayed still when I wanted to run. I let the world lean on my shoulders and thank them for the weight. I memorized the art of I'm fine, said it like a prayer, said it like truth. Even my reflection started believing it, even I forgot the sound of me. There were nights my chest felt crowded, like words pacing behind locked doors. Every thought asking for daylight, every feeling waiting its turn. I watched my life from the corner, like someone else was driving the days. I didn't complain, I didn't resist, I became very good at surviving. But something inside me kept tapping, not loud, not brave, just real. A small insistence, a quiet knock saying, you are still here. Scene. Just one breath that refused to stay small, one moment that stopped asking permission. I said no without raising my voice, but but the room felt it shake. I said no without anger, but the years fell off my back. I didn't shout, I didn't beg, I didn't need to explain. I stood there finally unguarded and felt taller than fear. The wall didn't end when I spoke, the ground didn't open wide, but something heavy loosened its grip and something honest stepped outside. Now I move slower but truer. Now my silence has edges. I don't know my pain good manners. I don't know my life quiet. If you hear this and feel exposed, if your chest tightens just a bit, that's not weakness rising, that's you finally uncaged. I lay unpaged. I stood where the floor still remember my weight. Not moving, just finally still. Every sound in the room knew my name, but none of them asked me to explain. I learned how to breathe without bracing, how to let the silence stay wide. The walls stopped leaning on my shoulders when I stopped holding them upright. I didn't fall, I didn't break, I just released what I never claimed. There was a second long and clean where my chest opened without fear. Not loud, not sharp, not desperate. Just clear enough to feel real. I've been strong in the wrong direction. I've been calm like a locked door. This time I chose a quieter courage, one that doesn't wait anymore. I didn't fall, I didn't shake, I stayed exactly where I was. If you listen close, you can hear it, that low, steady change in tone, the sound of someone standing straight without needing to be known. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't run, I stayed, and that was enough. I learned silence by watching the room, how heads bowed before the truth arrived. I learned to breathe between other people's fears and call it patience, call it being alive. Every word I swallowed grew heavier, like stones I carried in my chest. I told myself this way was normal. I told myself quiet was best. But something cracked in the stillness, a low sound under my skin. Not anger, not hope, just pressure, asking softly to be let in. I tried to ignore it, named it a fate, said tomorrow will make it disappear. But tomorrow kept asking the same question: why are you still hiding here? And one night the air felt different, like the room was holding its breath. My hands were shaking, my voice was small, but silence felt closer to death. So I spoke, not loud, not clean, not brave like stories pretend. Just one honest, trembling sentence that refused to bend again. The walls didn't fall, the world stayed cruel. Nothing holy split the sky, but something inside me stood upright. For the first time in my life, I felt the fear rush forward. I let it look me in the eye, and when it asked me to step back, I finally said no and didn't lie. Now I know what my voice costs, I know what it gives away, but I also know the price of silence, and I won't pay it again. If my words break the calm you loved, if they ruin the shape of the room, remember I was quiet for years. This sound is long overdue. I'm not louder than the truth, I'm not stronger than the pain. I just stopped leaving myself behind every time I chose to stay the same. I learned how to smile with a locked jaw, how to nod while the ground fell in. Every word I swallowed grew heavier, till silence fell louder than my skin. I carried rooms I never entered, doors I closed before they burned. I carry names I stopped saying, lessons I never learned. I folded my truth into neat excuses, laid them flat so no one would see. I call it patience, I call it timing, but it was fear holding on to me. There were nights I rehearsed confessions, in the dark to the empty air. But morning came with its careful promises, and I left my voice back there. The weight I carried had a heartbeat. It moved when I tried to rest. Every step forward dragged it louder against the center of my chest. Then something cracked in the quiet. Not a scream, not a fight, just one sentence breaking the surface. After years of holding it tight, I said it plain, I said it shaking. No armor left to defend, and the world didn't end. When I spoke it, it only bent. The weight didn't vanish in that moment, and it didn't fall to the floor, but it shifted, it loosened its grip like it never had before. I felt smaller and taller together, like truth finally took a side. I lost the version that kept me safe and kept the one that survived. Now silence sounds different to me. It's not a place where I hide, it's a pause between honest breaths where nothing has to die. The weight I carry still remembers, but it no longer leaves. I walk ahead, it walks behind, finally letting me breathe. If I fall, it won't be from quiet. If I break, it won't be inside. I spoke once and the echo stayed. That's how I learned to stand upright. I kept the door unlocked for years, not for you to come back, but for the version of us never learned how to start. There were words I practiced alone, said them to walls, to cups. Tonight every sentence survived, except the one meant for you. We stood close to the moment, close enough to feel its heat, but something quiet stepped in and taught us how to retreat. I learned the shape of almost, the weight of nearly saying yes. How silence can look like wisdom while slowly hollowing the chest. I don't blame fear, I don't blame time. I blame the calm voice that said not now and sounded kind. And then it rose in me, now loud, not sharp, just firm enough to break the pattern, just strong enough to leave a mark. I said it out loud at last, not your name, not the past. I said I deserve more than a life lived half attached. The room didn't change, the world carried it like a stone in my mouth. Heavy quiet teaching me how to swallow truth. Every room I entered felt smaller, because the words stayed behind the door. I smiled when silence was expected. I nodded where I should have stood. They thought I was calm, maybe kind, but I was just unfinished. There are sentences that age inside you. They grow sharp, they learn your name. They wait for the exact second when fear finally gets tired. I rehearsed it in empty streets, said it to mirrors, said it to air. Every version sounded braver when no one was really there. My hands knew it before my voice. My chest burned before my lips. Something was knocking from the inside, asking for a way out. And then it rose, not loud at first, not a scream, not a fight, just a steady breaking open, like morning forcing night to move. I said it once, and the room changed. Walls stepped back, the floor felt wide. No one clapped, no thunder came, but I stood taller on my side. Some people looked away quickly, some pretended they didn't hear, but the weight I carried for years finally disappeared. I didn't win, I didn't lose, I didn't burn the past to dust. I simply placed the truth between us and let it stay where it was. Now silence feels different. It no longer owns my breath, because I know what my voice can do when it chooses itself. If I leave tonight, I leave lighter. If I stay complete. Not because they finally understood, but because I finally spoke. There are sentences that save you, not by noise, but by release. This was mine, and this was the moment I stopped being unfinished. I learned to speak by keeping still, by swallowing the urge, the will. Every word I didn't say built a wall inside my chest. Rooms were loud, my mouth was calm. I nodded through the rising storm. I let the moments pass me by, called it peace, but it was fear. Buried silence like a name, like it was mine, like it was fate. Every truth I locked away. Learned how heavy quiet stays. And there were nights I almost broke, when my breath felt like a choke. I rehearsed the honest lines, but silence won me every time. Oh, I watched my life from one step back, afraid of what I might impact. I thought restraint was being strong, didn't know I was so wrong. And something shifted in my spine, a pressure building over time. Not a scream, not a cry, just a fire in my eyes. I stood there shaking, standing back. No perfect words, just open air. And when I spoke, the room stood still. Not from volume, but from will. I didn't shout, I didn't run. I said my truth in human tone. And in that calm I finally knew silence was a choice I grew. Now I keep it when it heals, not when it hides the way I feel. I let my voice be silent.